Tonight, targeted threats, an alarming new incident tied to an extortion ring terrorizing South Asians in Alberta. The drive-by shooting after a trail of fire.
27 occurrences between October and January.
As police investigate ties to a kingpin in India. Range anxiety, the extreme cold putting a chill on electric vehicle batteries.
It's like 30% loss.
Also, deadline day. Small businesses scramble to repay pandemic loans.
I didn't have the cash.
Plus, signing a historic deal, giving Nunavut full responsibility for its land. And the art of dancing in defiance.
Some dancers who still in army now, fighting now.
The Ukrainian ballet troupe sharing beauty and hope in a time of war.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. Police are describing it as a brazen string of extortions orchestrated overseas and carried out by alleged criminals here in Canada. Edmonton police say a malicious mastermind based in India has been directing locals in the city where there have been 27 events since October, 5 extortions, 15 arsons, and 7 firearm offenses. The targets, South Asian home builders who are having their projects torched with millions in damage if they don't pay. So far, 6 people have been charged. Of those, 1 has fled the country and 1 is in police custody. CTV's Heather Wright on the investigation and similar incidents in other provinces.
A car slows down as it approaches an Edmonton home. It stops and someone inside opens fire. Police say a family, including children, were inside when this happened last week, but no one was injured. Police say this is just the latest incident of extortion targeting the South Asian community, crimes that often include arson and usually begin with a text message.
There's a request that comes along with that for some compensation to allow those victims to remain safe.
Edmonton is not the only city grappling with these crimes. Similar incidents have been reported in Brampton, Ontario, and British Columbia. While it's not clear if the same criminals are involved across the country, there are many similarities in how the crimes are carried out.
All of the points of information used in the threats can be found on open source on the internet. And the demands are often for currency that are Canadian-based or Indian rupees.
Police believe the criminal network is being orchestrated by at least one person in India. The extortion demands are often for significant amounts of money, with the targets typically high-profile members of the South Asian community, business owners, and home builders.
It's time to take this seriously, and it's time to take it in a way that is coordinated.
Surrey Mayor Brenda Locke and Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown recently wrote the federal government, asking it to take the lead on this investigation. In a social media post today, Vancouver MP and Emergency Preparedness Minister Harjit Sajjan tweeted, "We are actively dealing with extortion attempts targeting South Asian Canadians. We will use all tools to protect Canadians who have been targeted by organized crime, regardless of where it originates."
Police acknowledge some have been unwilling to come forward, many terrified and fearing for their safety. They encourage anyone who has received a threatening text or phone call to get in touch and not to hand over any money. Omar.
All right, Heather, thank you. Quebec says it's reaching a breaking point when it comes to accepting asylum seekers. In a letter to the Prime Minister, Premier François Legault calls the situation unsustainable and claims nearly 60,000 asylum seekers were registered in Quebec in the first 11 months of last year, putting very significant pressure on services. He wants Ottawa to tighten its visa policies and to distribute asylum seekers more equitably across the country. Canada's newest territory has reached a historic deal with the federal government for control over its own natural resources. It paves the way for a financial boost at a time when Nunavut needs it most. CTV's Kevin Gallagher reports.
Celebrations in Nunavut today, marking a historic deal with Ottawa.
This step we're taking today to recognize that Nunavummiut deserve to have more control over their lives, their future, their land, their territory.
The devolution agreement transfers 2 million square kilometers of land, or about a fifth of Canada's total landmass, from federal jurisdiction to territorial control.
We'll continue to have differences, but the beauty of our ability to be able to work together is what brought us here today.
Since the territory was created nearly 25 years ago, government negotiators have been working towards this day. It allows Nunavut to set laws, regulations, and policies for conservation, zoning regulations, and most importantly, natural resources.
Now they'll be able to sort of set their own economic destiny, make their own decisions about mining, and make their own decisions about revenue and taxation.
More than 36,000 people live in Nunavut. Most are Inuit.
Our people have made many, many sacrifices in the name of Canadian sovereignty. In the past, too many decisions about us were made without us. With the signing of this very historic agreement, we could now bring decision-making home right here.
Still, it will take 3 years to transfer these federal responsibilities and employees to Nunavut's control. And it comes at a time when the territory is undergoing a housing crisis and says it needs hundreds of millions to address water infrastructure issues.
The agreement is a major step towards Indigenous self-determination in the region. Ottawa still has control over Nunavut's offshore resources, but there's now a path to negotiate that as well. Omar?
All right, Kevin, thank you. Well, Nunavut is no stranger to extreme cold. In fact, many parts of the country are experiencing a bitter winter chill lately. And that's testing the driving range of many electric vehicles. CTV's Manitoba Bureau Chief Jill Makashon on the best and worst performers.
With temperatures dipping into the minus teens and 20s across Canada, electric vehicle owners are also seeing their battery power plunge.
So it does consume about 50% more in this cold.
Many drivers anticipated that pull on power and have prepared for it.
And I was getting about 400 or so kilometers, and now it's probably maybe 350.
But at this charge station near Chicago, no one was moving. EVs stranded with dead batteries. The freezing weather took out a number of charging stations, leaving many drivers waiting hours.
It takes 2 hours to charge a car.
CAA says EV drivers may see a 40 to 50% decrease in range when temperatures drop below minus 15. According to the research firm Recurrent, the Hyundai Kona had among the best range in the cold. The Tesla models all lost about a quarter of their range, and the Chevy Bolt lost about a third. In Alberta, record-breaking cold over the weekend prompted an emergency alert and a plea to citizens to conserve energy. That included unplugging electric vehicles. With Ottawa phasing out gas-powered trucks and cars by 2035, there are questions whether EV infrastructure can keep up. Last year, the government said there were about 20,000 publicly available charging stations in Canada. More than 400,000 are needed in the next 11 years.
Of course, one of the things that consumers want to be assured of is if they do purchase an electric vehicle, that they're going to have the ability to charge that vehicle wherever, whenever.
In fact, a fall survey found range anxiety was a top reason Canadians hesitated to buy an EV, the other, the cost. But EV owners see the benefits even in the cold.
So what are some hints for people to conserve? So if you are running low on a charge, just slow down.
And try and keep the vehicle's battery warm. In this cold, it will take 20 to 30 minutes to charge. Omar?
All right, Jill, thank you. Today is deadline day for thousands of small businesses to pay back pandemic-era loans from the federal government. And as CTV's Sarah Plowman reports, many say they can't.
Hey, Molly. For many across the country, the to-do list was the same. Businesses had to pay Ottawa back if they wanted a third of their pandemic loan forgiven. Derek Vinagas just repaid his.
Without the loan and everything else, I don't think I would have survived.
This Calgary boxing club couldn't find the funds and couldn't refinance it.
At the end of the day, it's going to be a knockout. We're going to have to file for bankruptcy.
For some who did pay, costs are still piling on. Ingredients, labor, all of it is up. Patty Hollenberg didn't have the cash but took out another loan to meet the deadline. One more layer of stress.
It's just been like a kick in the groin after perpetual kick in the groin.
Nearly 900,000 businesses borrowed up to $60,000 to stay afloat during the pandemic. The Canadian Federation of Independent Business estimates 200,000 businesses will miss today's deadline. Restaurants are struggling.
So 82% of independent operators took out a CEBA loan. We've got 1 in 5 of those operators who are looking at closing 1 or more of their locations.
There's been calls to extend the deadline that's already been extended twice. The Prime Minister has said Canada has to wrap up pandemic programs. Business owners like Mike Babineau are still recovering.
We still had the fallout from inflation. We still had the fallout from higher wages, the carbon tax.
If a business can't pay off its debt by today, it will convert to a 3-year loan at 5% interest. They can also apply to refinance it and still be eligible for that partial forgiveness as long as they pay it off by the end of March. Omar.
All right, Sarah, thank you. Israel's prime minister says he's told the U.S. he opposes the establishment of a Palestinian state after the war, prompting an immediate rebuke from Washington. CTV's Judy Trin on the public rift between two allies.
When the bombs stop, the vision Israel's prime minister has for the territory is one that leaves Palestinian dreams for independence in the rubble. Israel must have security control over all territory west of the Jordan River, Benjamin Netanyahu said. It conflicts with the two-state solution advanced by its biggest ally, the U.S., and most of the international community.
The only way forward for a safe and secure Israel is to have a Palestinian state that is also safe and secure.
Netanyahu's comments come as Middle East tensions rise. Today, Pakistan bombed extremists hiding in Iran.
This morning's action was taken in light of credible intelligence of impending large-scale terrorist activities.
Earlier this week, Iran made the same argument in reverse when it launched drone strikes on militants in Pakistan, Iraq, and Syria. Iran is also arming Houthi rebels in Yemen. U.S. fighter jets targeted Houthi anti-ship missiles again, one day after the White House designated them a terrorist group. In Davos, Israel's president urged the world to pay attention to Iran's ability to sow chaos.
There is an empire of evil emanating from Tehran, spending billions of dollars in arms and money and people's well-being to derail the entire stability of the world and the region.
Back in Gaza, the United Nations says more than 60,000 people are injured and 2 million people are at risk of starvation. Israel says 200 trucks a day carrying humanitarian aid are getting through. But airstrikes continue. In Rafah, another 16 Palestinians were killed today. You kill my children, then send me medication. What use will I have for them?
Palestinian officials say rebuilding Gaza will cost at least $15 billion. It's a price tag that will go up. Netanyahu says Hamas, while weakened, isn't eradicated. Omar.
Judy Trin in Ottawa tonight. Young lives could have been saved in Uvalde, Texas, if police acted sooner during the school massacre in 2022, according to a damning new report.
Shots fired! Get inside!
A U.S. federal investigation found, quote, cascading failures of leadership in the police response. Officers took nearly 80 minutes to stop the shooting as students made desperate 911 calls from inside.
I'm in classroom 1012. Please hurry. There's a lot of dead bodies. Please.
The gunman killed 19 students and 2 teachers before he was shot by police. Coming up, a suspect behind the spark.
It was pretty devastating for the area. We have never experienced anything like that.
Charges in the biggest wildfire in Nova Scotia's history. Last year was Canada's worst wildfire season on record, and today we learned who is being accused of causing one of the largest. Here's CTV's Kristen Ajkate.
The largest wildfire in Nova Scotia's history, officials say, has been caused by a single person.
We charged an individual, a male individual from Shelburne County.
The Barrington Lake fire started in May of last year and grew to more than 23,000 hectares, forcing more than 6,000 to flee, destroyed close to 50 homes and another 150 structures.
It was pretty devastating for the area. We have never experienced anything like that.
22-year-old Dalton Clark Stewart of Villagedale, Nova Scotia is facing 3 charges, including lighting a fire on private land without permission, failing to take efforts to prevent the spread, and leaving a fire unattended. This legal expert says it's important to note the charges are not criminal.
The penalty is possibly, I think, 6 months or 50,000. So it's much more of what we call a regulatory, or what's also called quasi-criminal offense.
The Tantalon fire that destroyed 151 homes started just days after the Barrington Lake fire. Nova Scotia RCMP concluded its investigation due to lack of evidence, but the province says theirs is still ongoing.
The Forest Act does allow us up to 2 years to lay a charge.
In Quebec, 38-year-old Brian Parley admitted to starting several fires in the areas of Chapay and Chibougamau in northern Quebec last spring. Police say as the fires burned, Parley allegedly falsely claimed online the government started the fires to convince the public that climate change was real. Researchers say the majority of fires in Quebec last summer were caused naturally. Parley is in custody following a check on his mental state, while Stewart in Nova Scotia will make his first court appearance in March. Chris Nachkate, CTV News, Halifax.
Sad news tonight from the world of track and field. Canadian star pole vaulter Sean Barber has died at the age of 29. Barber captured gold at the 2015 World Championships in Beijing and won 5 Canadian titles. His agent says Barber died at his Texas home and had been experiencing health issues, but no cause of death has been released. And some positive news today for royal watchers.
How's His Majesty? He's fine, thank you very much. Looking forward to getting back to work. Absolutely.
Queen Camilla assuring crowds King Charles is doing well, even though he canceled today's scheduled meetings. He is awaiting surgery next week for an enlarged prostate. And this morning, the Prince of Wales was spotted leaving the hospital where his wife is recovering from abdominal surgery on Tuesday. Still ahead, controlling the need to speed. Newfoundland cracks down on careless drivers breaking the law. Newfoundland and Labrador is accelerating its plan to put the brakes on speeding. CTV's Garrett Barry explains what's driving it.
They've got the culprits right in their sights. Thousands of them.
They're on residential streets with speed limits of 40 or 50 kilometers an hour, some of them in school zones.
Newfoundland and Labrador saw speed cameras for the first time last summer. It was a 3-month pilot project in 2 communities. And in that trial, the provincial government caught 94,000 speeding vehicles, all traveling more than 11 kilometers an hour over the posted speed limit.
Let's put that in perspective. That's basically 1,000 vehicles every single day, roughly 42 speeding cars every single hour.
Considering we only have 520,000 people in Newfoundland and Labrador, and of those 94,000, nearly 1 in 4 were going over 20 kilometers an hour over the speed limit.
So many speeders, they couldn't keep up with all the notices.
They had someone actually print out and stick an envelope and mail something out in the mail. And we realized in the pilot that that was a big bottleneck because, we don't always have teams of people who can do that.
This driving instructor wasn't surprised. Paul Prowse has been teaching on the roads of St. John's for decades.
What I try to tell people to do and how to drive according to the rules of the Road and the Highway Traffic Act, 95% of us on the street are not doing it.
But now the provincial government wants to fine them, something it didn't do in the 3-month pilot project.
But I really believe that's going to slow people down.
Other provinces have figured this out. In Alberta and Ontario, cameras capture speed and red light violations, sending tickets in the mail. That's the kind of system Newfoundland and Labrador is looking at. And today, opposition politicians in this province said, hurry up, urging the government to bring in enforcement faster. Garrett Barry, CTV News, St. John's.
Post-game handshakes are allowed again for minor hockey in Newfoundland and Labrador after the province's hockey authority reversed a ban that, quote, sparked considerable conversation. The association says it originally implemented the measure to limit altercations, but the move sparked strong criticism. Toronto Raptors president Masai Ujiri became emotional today when speaking about trading superstar Pascal Siakam.
Yeah, two moments.
Ujiri took a long pause when he was asked what he'll remember about Siakam's time in the organization.
Yeah, two African guys that won the championship. I share that with him. And I think of his dad and Pascal at Basketball Without Borders.
Siakam had been with the Raptors since 2016 and was traded to Indiana. After the break, from Kyiv to Canada, the dancers sharing their torment through their talent. Next month marks 2 years since the start of the Ukraine war, and now a group of elite dancers from Kyiv is taking to the stage in Canada, sharing their passion with purpose. Here's CTV's Vanessa Lee.
The beauty and grace of the movements on stage mask the pain and sorrow the dancers carry. No one in their country is safe.
My daughter there, and always we are like, oh, alarm, and I know that it's night, but I calling to my husband if they are moving from the apartment, if they are going to the more safely place.
Just husband and family. Marina Stepanchenko is among 23 dancers here from the National Ballet of Ukraine. They aren't just showcasing their culture. They feel it's their duty to share with the world what is happening back home. Nearly 2 years after Russia's invasion, there is still no end in sight to the conflict.
All day, each day, somebody dead.
They're doing their best to move forward and honor those lost. Fellow dancer and father of two, Alexander Shapoval, was killed on the front lines while defending the Donetsk region.
Until now, we are in shock that it's happened. And we had also some dancers who still in army now, and they're fighting now.
Even in war, dancers continue to train, rehearse, and perform at its headquarters in Kyiv.
Every performance in Kyiv, people stay in theater. For them, it's more important than before because they have 2 hours like normal life, you know?
Money raised from the shows will go towards relief and rebuilding efforts, with the hope their exquisite movements will move others to help. Vanessa Lee, CTV News, Montreal.
And that's a snapshot of this Thursday. Heather's here tomorrow. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night, and see you on Monday.